Tariffs are not a question of economics alone. They are a question of peace or war. High tariffs breed international strife. Cordell Harris, U.S. Secretary of State, 1937. All right. Welcome back. If you were here this morning, you might be like, wow, this guy loves podcasting. And I kind of do, actually. Oh, you know what? You, did I just say you? Like some sort of teenage girl or something? Ew. Okay. I forgot to introduce the show. Welcome to another episode of Liberty Dad Podcast, discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian, possibly also most forgetful. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time. All right, so I streamed this morning. My normal hours are 7:30 in the morning till kind of whenever. I usually try to aim for about an hour. And so like if you already are in the know, then you know what's up. I am streaming. I'm like rapidly streaming so that I can catch up to this 30 hours and 30 days mark so that I can get into the Rumble Creator Program. So I've just been working my butt off, like trying to find like episodes that I can do. And it's hopeful. This one, I might be pushing it, not in some sort of crazy, way where it's like, man, I can't believe he said that. I might be pushing it in the entertainment area. May not even be entertaining. I don't know. We're going to see. But I had this idea. I was seeing like all this, accolades like, oh man, look at this, so many trillions of dollars. It's all because of Trump's tariffs. And I even got into some arguments with people over this. And I was like, well, I don't think that's necessarily from the tariffs themselves. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. But let's get back. Let's back up a little bit. The Rumble Creator update. Let me tell you where I am. So, where is that? Well, no, that's not what I want. This is what I want. Here it is. So here it is up on the screen. And basically what you're looking at, this is the Rumble Creator Program. And I really need to fix that, like white, whatever. I don't know. And green screen is so difficult to work with. Like you get you get a hot spot on there, and then it just looks ugly. And and it's weird because the room doesn't change, but sometimes that light like isn't there. Like if I move around a little bit, it seems to like get stronger. I don't really understand. I mean, I know it has to do with lighting and yada yada yada, but I don't quite understand. Like if I move my head over here, why is the wall, whatever. Anyway, so here's the Rumble Creator Program. And you can see that I am very close, 27.1 hours. And I have until tomorrow at noon. So I'm doing another episode tonight. And I think my aim is 2 hours, right? So if you buckle up, Buttercup, or maybe grab you a fresh cup of coffee. I've got mine, so we're ready to go. It's just decaf though, because I still got to go to bed. That way I can get up and do another show in the morning. So I'm at 27.1 hours. So if I do a 2-hour show tonight and I do my regular 1 hour in the morning, but bam, I should be in. I should be ready to go and get in the program. And then I can start making some money maybe, right? Because like, who wants to podcast just for the fun of it? Okay, probably some people. But while I'm doing it, might as well make some money. Oh man, now that I'm looking at it, it's really annoying that like I almost look like I'm some sort of like saint. If I move it over my head a little bit, like okay, I'll stop being dorky. So anyway, so that's what I've got going on. I am trying to get myself in there, and because I didn't get started until about the middle of the month, that's when I was really made aware of all the details and like, oh, I can do this. I actually have to compensate for the days that I missed. I missed a couple of days for whatever reason, and then I also have to compensate for the weekends And then I'm going to have to come up with a plan exactly how I'm going to maintain the 30 days or 30 hours over 30 days. So anyway, that's what's going on. But I'm almost there. And so I'm looking forward to it. I almost gave up Sunday night. Sunday, I was working at a property. I was doing some rehab stuff. I got home. I was sweaty and I was just tired. I just had no energy. And I was like, you know what? Maybe to heck with this. Maybe that's just what I need to do. And so I was gonna quit. And then I woke up Monday morning and I was like, I looked at the number. I think it was like 23. And I was like, no, I can still do this. I can still pull this off. I was like, it was just eating at me. I was like, no, I'm not gonna, because I'll have to wait until June. Like if I don't make the May cutoff, I'll have to wait till June. So I was like, I'm gonna make this happen. I talked to my wife and, my family, and I was like, all right, look, y'all gonna have to bear with me because I'm gonna podcast a lot, and then with the hope of getting into this program, and then just kind of hopefully growing the show. So that's what's going on. All right, we got the real Swampcast in the house. What's up, everyone? Hey, DL. That's what they said, and I say hey back. So let's start. Where do we want to start here? Let's start with the White House. We're not going to go to the White House, obviously, but what we're going to do is we're going to pop this up on the screen. And where are you? Oh, I know what I need. I need to do one more thing and then we can get it up on the screen. All right, perfect. So there we are. So we're going to start here. This is an article, March 24th. And I'm not going to read all the article, like the links for everything are in the show notes. If you look in the show notes, you're going to see like a massive amount of links. You might think that I was trying to like read a book instead of write it, but then also, add all my notes at the very end, all my references. So it's the White House. It says more investment, more jobs, and more money in Americans' pockets. I mean, who doesn't want that? I mean, I'm working hard to try to get into this program so I can have more money in my pocket. I'll just read the very first part here. Today, Hyundai announced a $20 billion investment in the United States, including $5.8 billion for a new steel plant in Louisiana, which will create nearly 1,500 jobs. The investment, which builds on Hyundai's pledge earlier this year to further localize production in the U.S., is the latest success in President Donald J. Trump's pursuit of Made in America renaissance. Somebody's at my house. It's further proof that President Trump's economic agenda is working. All right, and then it goes down, and you can go read it yourself. It starts pointing out all the different entities and how much they've pledged and whatnot. It's a long list. That's why I'm not reading it, because we're going to walk through not all of it. What we're going to do is, if you notice the little picture up here, this is what we're going to focus on here in just a moment. We're going to focus on this. But first, let's go to this other page. So April 29th. So this was literally today. Trump effect. A running list of new U.S. investment in President Trump's second term. Right? Since President Donald J. Trump took office, his unwavering commitment to revitalizing American industry has spurred trillions of dollars of investments in U.S. manufacturing, production, and innovation. And the list only continues to grow. Here is a non-comprehensive running list of the new U.S.-based investments in President Trump's second term. And so then they go through, and a lot of them are same. Just going to scroll down here, and you can see it's a long list. Now, I'm not doing every one of them because that would be an awful show. And then it says that doesn't even include the U.S. investments pledged by foreign countries. So we got 4 foreign countries here. They're like, all right. You win. We're going to invest in America now, right? So that's what we're talking about here. And let me show you. Let's see, where are my slides here? So let's go here. And then, man, that light thing is just really, if I move over here a little bit, it'll dimmer. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I'm gonna work on that. I don't know why it sometimes shows up and sometimes doesn't. Anyway, so here's what the White House tweeted out. They said, while the haters hate, President Trump delivers. Now we're at 5.2 trillion in investments locked in. That's the Trump effect, right? And it's got like an emoji. Are you familiar with Dave Smith? Didn't he say that like men shouldn't use emojis? Like, I hope I hope this account is being run by women. I'm just saying. Because otherwise, like the Dave Smith effect, whatever that is, I don't know exactly. I'm just making stuff up. But anyway, so they're like calling you a hater. Okay, you can call me a hater. I just want to know, is this really a result of Trump's effort this term? I mean, we're getting ready to go into May, and companies in just a few months decided, you know what? We're going to invest $5 trillion in the United States, companies and countries, all starting like they had no plan January, before January. Or we'll just go back to November. Before Trump won the election, they had no plan, right? And then after that, they all said, you know what? We'll just spend 100 billion here, trillion here, whatever. Right? That's what happened. Color me skeptical. All right. What's this next one? Then it included this picture. Now, this is a nice little infographic. I mean, we got to be honest. I'm the most objective libertarian in America. I must be honest. It's not a bad graphic. It really isn't. It's pretty awesome looking. But we have to evaluate the facts. What do the facts say? That's what's really important. So let's dive in. Let's listen to Jesse Waters. Let's see what he has to say. Because I think that's interesting. Let me see. Let me make sure I got that. Oh, do I not have it? Oh, goodness gracious. Got things. Okay. We can do this. And let's see here.
The UAE just announced a $1.4 trillion investment in American AI. NVIDIA just committed to spending hundreds of billions of dollars on American chip manufacturing. Johnson & Johnson just announced a $55 billion investment in American manufacturing, tech, and R&D. These investments are in response to Trump's tariffs.
Oh, there it is. These investments are in response to Trump's tariffs. That's the claim I was looking for. Now, I saw plenty on social media. There are a lot of people, they had memes. Some of the memes were kind of long and whatever, but that's what we're looking for. That's what we're going to evaluate tonight.
We've been ripped off by every country in the world, friend and foe. We've been ripped off on trade. We've been ripped off on military. We protect people and they don't do anything for us. Now some of that money is going to be coming back to us in the form of tariffs.
Trump says April 2nd will be Liberation Day. That's when reciprocal tariffs go up. American workers have been held hostage for far too long.
Far too long. Hostage. It's a hostage situation. And I think I remember there was a tweet from Trump's first term where he was like, he quoted somebody who was calling him the greatest hostage negotiator that he's ever heard of or met or something like that. And it was like some hostage negotiator or some FBI agent or something. I don't know, whatever. And they were just like, oh man, they were fawning all over him because that's what people do when they like their president. They're like, oh my God, he can do no wrong. Now, why is this episode going to be long? Well, one, I need the hours. I feel like a wage worker, right? Like, I could use the hours, boss. No, I'm not dissing wage workers. Not dissing. I'm salary now, so therefore, there is no, I could use the hours, boss. It's that kind of the other way around. It's like the company could use the hours, DL. So, but I just was kind of making a joke like, yeah, it kind of feels that way. But the reason that it's going to be so long is because we're going to evaluate a whole bunch of these claims. And if you're not familiar with it, let me put up something on the screen here for you. You probably have seen this before, but this is Brandolini's law. And if you're not familiar with it, it's very simple. The amount of energy needed to refute bullshit is in an order of magnitude bigger than that needed to produce it. It's very true. Like I could just make up a rumor and probably do it in like one single sentence. And if you wanted to go and prove it wrong, you might have to write like a paragraph or a whole page just to show everything that I said in that one or maybe even two sentences was wildly incorrect, depending on, what I actually said. And so there's a certain truth here. Like the effort is greater. So we're going to spend 2 hours disputing Jesse Waters and others who basically put out something that you could consume in like 30 seconds. So that's where we are. So, excuse me, what is my criteria? How do we determine this? So what I'm doing is, and let me put this other image up on the screen. Let me just show you this and then we'll talk about it. Let's see, where are you here? Do I not have it? Yeah, there it is. Perfect. Okay. So U.S. investment pledges. So I'm going to go with this one because this is what I saw originally and I bookmarked it. And then more came out later. And obviously you can see there's quite a few here to begin with. So I don't really need any more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through every one of these. And we're just going to, I looked them up. I researched every single one of these. And I said, all right, is it true that, or can I find evidence supporting the idea that tariffs resulted in these numbers from these countries or companies, right? Like that was, and so I did a couple of things. Number one, I did a Google search for any news sources after 1/1/2025. So I did only for 2025. Then in another tab, I looked up news sources and then I narrowed the search results. And hopefully, you can do this. You can click on, I think it's like there's a button that you can click on and you can get to where you say, I only want results that are between this time frame. And so then I chose any result that was in 2023 or 2024. And the reason I did that is because the problem with trying to identify when a when a deal is brand new is multifaceted. Number one, um, it's not always clear that, like when the ball started really rolling, because a lot of that stuff isn't public information. So so like if something was started to be talked about in 2018, fine, whatever. I'm not going to make a big fuss of it. The other thing is 2018, like let's just take 2018, for example. Let's say I found a news story that puts into question one of these that's from 2018. Well, unless it's got plenty of details to really say, yes, this this particular news story rebuts the idea that this particular investment is all as a result of Trump's 2025 term or his second term. And unless you find a bunch of information, it gets very dicey because companies are consistently doing different types of investment, right? So they might invest $5 million this year, and then next they might have a good year, and then next year they may bump it up and say, all right, we're going to add to that $5 million. Now we're going to add 3 million, or some sort of circumstances might have changed. Maybe a president that's more sympathetic to their industry or to their business or what have you gets into office and does things that are more favorable to them, right? Then they may decide, okay, we're going to go and do this other thing now, right? So there's any number of things. So what I just tried to do is just say, all right, is it clear to me that there is no evidence? And I only did a simple dive. I didn't spend like an hour on each one reading all the company reports and all that stuff. I didn't do any of that. I just looked at news sources, right? And I looked at what some would consider to be legitimate news sources. So like Reuters, CNBC, stuff like that, right? Things that are basically different media are going to report effectively the same thing. So that's what I try to do. Now it's not bulletproof because I'm only going on, again, like I said a moment ago, what is reported. Anyone who has worked for corporate America knows that there are things that happen well before the employees are aware, let alone the news reporting it publicly. So the goal here was just to see what can be attributed to tariffs since Trump started signing executive orders. And if it seems plausible that the tariffs led to the investment, then I will acknowledge it. Or if I can't find evidence to the contrary. But if not, then I won't. Now, keep in mind, there are 3 points to consider regarding business. There's moving existing businesses. There are planned new businesses like redirected. So you've got a business in China, that's an existing one. Their factory's already there, and maybe they decide to close down that factory and move their the factory and everything to some other country, be the U.S., whatever. Then there are planned new business where the company's sitting there and they're like, all right, um, we're going to invest in this new product in Q2 of next year. That's when we're going to kick it off, blah, blah, blah. We're already making plans to designate the money. Here's what we're doing, right? And, so that's a planned new business, but it could get redirected, right? They might say, okay, circumstances are no longer favorable here for doing a business that are more favorable over here. And it makes more sense to do it over here. So they may redirect. Then there are brand new investments. Now, brand new investments are interesting because typically you might see more from, like, say, a new competitor taking advantage of the market than, say, an existing company. That's not to say that an existing company doesn't decide to do a brand new investment. They do that. Like, that's how you get new investments, right? But again, we're talking about in the context of tariffs, in the context of just a couple of months of, Trump's presidency doing whatever he's doing. So that would mean tariffs, reaching out and talking to people, trying to negotiate, saying, what would it take to get you to, you know, build a new factory here or to move some business here or whatever, right? And I think there were even a few where he was like, "Can we get you to bump that up? You said like 600 million. How about a trillion?" Right? Like, so he's out there trying to make goals. And so, um, so the brand new investments, it's possible that they can be from existing companies. The likelihood, though, seems that it's really going to be you have company A that's in China and the tariff is imposed and they don't really have, for whatever reason, it doesn't make sense to move. And so they have to deal with the tariff. They maybe raise the prices at the consumer, end or whoever consumes from them in reality. It all rolls down. And then, but then a company in the US might say, "Oh, it costs more to produce this thing. We can do it over here more cheaply. So we're going to jump in the game. This is our time. This is our moment." Right. And then they grab their, all their Goonie gear and they're like, "This is our time now." Right. And they give themselves a little pep talk and then they go on in and they invest. So that's kind of how it is. Now, when we're talking about billions of dollars, again, keep in mind, companies don't just decide to spend, like, I don't know, $100 billion because the president signed a single executive order. Not necessarily. I mean, they might. A lot of it is how likely is that order to be rescinded? What's the impact going to be? Let's say that, let's say it gets rescinded in the next administration. Well, what's the cost of that? Is that a big cost? Because it may not be worth it, right? There's a whole bunch of variables. So that I just wanted to kind of lay that out. Okay. Um, so, and another thing I want to point out, Trump signed his first tariff on February 1st, 2025. Prior to that, it was threats. Okay. He was like, "I'm going to do it." Now, they may be legitimate threats, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that they have no, like, I'm not saying threat in the context of, yeah, he wasn't going to do it. But until it's done, it's hard to really say, yeah, somebody's going to go and spend $100 billion on the basis of a threat, especially an executive order, right? So, final comment here: I'm limiting my commentary on whether tariffs are good or bad, or any method of using them being good or bad, because I want to focus on whether or not we can identify these investments here. I'm finger went off the screen. As whether or not they came from tariffs. So let's go. Let's do this. We're going to walk through every single one of them. So where are we here? Bam. Going to do this. And here is the first one coming right up. So what I decided to do, and this took a lot of work, folks. I'm not going to bring up every single article because I probably crashed my machine because there were like 20 articles that I used. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to point out the parts in the article, who it came from, what date it was published, and then we're going to go from there. So the UAE, supposedly $1.4 trillion. Okay. So that's what we're going to start with. And let's see what we got here. Boom. All right. United Arab Emirates has committed to a 10-year, $1.4 trillion investment framework in the United States after top UAE officials met President Donald Trump this week, the White House said on Friday. All right. Sounding like it might be. This was in March, right? This was after we started with the tariffs. So perhaps this is one of them. So let's go on to my next slide here. I'm doing slideshows like I'm at a company. You could tell I work for corporate America. Like, here's my slideshow, guys. There's a whole bunch of text on it. I'm just going to read right off of it. Oh, man. I mean, I'm just, what happens? Whatever. In September, same article, in September, UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, I should have looked these up to see how they were pronounced, met former U.S. President Joe Biden. Whoa, wait a minute. What? In the first of a UAE president to the White House. Wait a minute. I thought it was about Trump. No, it does say that. I copied that. I copied and pasted it. Copy pasta. It says President Joe Biden in September of 2024. This is from the Reuters March 21 article. As the two leaders discussed deepening cooperation in areas such as AI, investments, and space exploration. All right. Well, that's interesting. So then we go on. We look up an article from that time frame. So here's an article from 2024 in September. UAE hoping to expand $1 trillion partnership with the U.S. through AI investment. Now, September, November, president hadn't been elected yet. That's interesting. So let's see what that article says. In it, CNBC article, Emirati President Sheikh Mohammed bin, I'm just going to say Sheikh Mohammed, first official trip to the United States aims to push the United Arab Emirates U.S. relationship to a new geoeconomic phase centered on economic growth and innovation, top officials said ahead of a meeting of the two leaders in Washington, D.C. on Monday. So this is in September. All right. And then we go on. Where's my next one here? Oh, yeah, I already got the knife pulled up. I just didn't notice it. The agenda for Sheikh Mohammed's meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris will include discussions on major regional challenges like the war in Gaza, but Gargash said the primary objective is economic realignment, as the UAE seeks to push the relationship beyond the traditional focus of regional conflict, oil, and defense. So it seems like they're the ones who push this. And then we get to the last slide here for UAE in February. Wow, February. So like there was no way they could have guessed who was going to be president in February of 2024. I mean, a lot of people would have been confident because, you wanted him to be president, but you weren't sure. Be honest. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said the UAE could serve as the world's regulatory sandbox to test artificial intelligence. Microsoft followed up with a major $1.5 billion investment in the UAE's top artificial intelligence firm, G42, in April. So there you have it. I believe that one, that was ongoing. It came in 2024. And while the president might say, I'm going to implement tariffs, nobody has an idea on who, right? What exemptions might happen, what how tolerable or difficult the tariff is. If it's a smaller tariff, then it may not be worth moving, right? You might just say, I'm going to fight through this. If it's a larger tariff, you might say, I got to move. But then you could also potentially move to another country that's not getting a tariff. I think there was a news article I saw about that. So this one, nope, sorry. What about Saudi Arabia? That's the next one on my list. Well, let's take a look at Saudi Arabia. I want to try to, let me see if I can't move some things. I'm going to move this around. I'm going to move some things around, I think. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll make it a little easier for me to. All right, there we go. I think that's going to work. All right, so let's go to the next one. The next one is Saudi Arabia. They said it was told that they're going to spend $600 billion. So let's take a look at that one. Oh, you know what? There we go. Boom. All right, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince said the kingdom wants to invest $600 billion in the United States over the next 4 years. Comments that came after President Donald Trump put a price tag on returning to the kingdom as his first foreign trip. This is from the AP News in January. Oh, January. Well, that's before February, right? I got that right? I'm not too old. So before he even signed the first executive order for his first tariff, there was already a conversation. Okay. So then we see the comments from the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. I'm just going to say Crown Prince Mohammed. Reported early Thursday by the state-run Saudi press agency, came in a phone call with Trump. It was Trump's first call with a foreign leader since his inauguration Monday. Okay. So he had a call. He's barely been sworn in, and somehow his tariffs are already working, the ones that he has not even implemented. Fun. So let's see, what else? The Crown Prince affirmed the kingdom's intention to broaden its investments and trade with the United States over the next 4 years in the amount of $600 billion and potentially beyond that, the report said. Well, all right. Well, it sounds like I'm going to do it. Sounds like nope. That one's not result of tariffs. Now, look, let me tell you something here, folks. I just want to point out really quickly because I want to try to be fair. Like I didn't vote for Trump, but I want to try to be fair. I'm not saying he had nothing to do with these investments. I'm just saying, like, in this big heated debate that everybody's having about tariffs and do tariffs work and is he playing 50D chess and all this other stuff? Like, why don't we just go read and see what we find? And then we're like, oh, doesn't seem like this is related to tariffs at all. And in some cases, it seems like these things were planned, for a couple of years in advance, a year or two in advance. So therefore, they still may be related to Trump, as we're going to see. I think there's one where they actually point out that the relationship with Trump started in his first term. So again, it's still the case that it might be his negotiation, but it's not the tariffs, right? At least for some of these, most of these, we'll see. We'll see what this ends up being. All right. So the next up, Hyundai. Let me make sure I'm not missing any comments here. So let's see here. I'm gonna get these as I go along. Real Swampcast says, survey says, I wish I had that button, but I don't have it. Larger spending than Biden. Doge can't even find $500 million. The tariff strategy is a major failure. And rather than ending a war, we're looking at entering at least 2 more. Bad. Well, you guys are tough. Thought I was being tough. You guys are tough. All right. They're called wage slaves, DL. I will try to keep that in mind, guys. We'll try to keep that in mind. Joe says Doge was a bunch of B propaganda, it seems. Yes. Yes, it was. In fact, did I do a show on that? Yes. One of the episodes that I did, I walked through where some of that is misleading, or you might just call it misinformation, or you could even further narrow it down to you are lying. So you can check out, I'm trying to remember which episode I did. It was one of the episodes, I think it was one of the weekend episodes that I did. It was really long, but I touched upon the Doge where Elon and some other guy, they were showing like 2 million illegal immigrants had gotten Social Security numbers. And I kind of debunked that. I said, yeah, that's actually not true. Or if it is true, there's a great amount of information that's missing. So I basically called that a lie. I was like, no, you're totally lying. So, but yes, propaganda all around. What's that meme with Buzz Lightyear? Propaganda everywhere, right? All right, so let's see. 2 trillion was always BS. They didn't admit that until after the election. That is true. There were news reports afterward where Elon's like, yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to find 2 trillion. I don't know. And then they failed to even hit $500 billion and then passed all the spending anyways. Show did. They show did. All right. So let's get back to what we were doing here. So that was the so we debunked Saudi Arabia, maybe Hyundai, $20 billion. Maybe that one's going to go a little bit better. So we'll see. So this one comes from the Korea Economic Daily, March of 2024. Steel makers are considering building steel mills with electric furnaces in the United States to survive the triple whammy of high tariff barriers. All right. Low emission requirements and stiff price competition from Chinese competitors. In 2018, during the Trump administration, Washington introduced a 25% tariff on imported steel. Okay, so this one's looking good, and this one's looking in their favor. Since then, Korea and Japan have been allowed to export tariff-free up to 70% of their average export volume of the previous 3 years. They must pay a 25% tariff for additional shipments. However, the U.S. tariff policy could work in their favor if Trump, the likely Republican candidate, wins the November election. So now they're speculating. They're like, all right, well, this could be really good for you guys. During his presidential campaign, Trump pledged to sharply raise tariffs on Chinese steel to more than 60%. If that occurs, Korean and Japanese steelmakers are expected to avoid a price war with China, which is dumping steel products on overseas markets to make up for waning domestic demand. All right. So this one went back to 2018 and even referenced tariffs, not just tariffs today, like in 2025, but tariffs in 2018 when Trump was in his first term. And then they speculated and said this could lead to more, right, if he gets elected. So we got to be honest because we're objective around here. So that one's a win. Hyundai, he wins. All right. Now let's look at Apple. Apple, $500 billion. Let's take a look at Apple here. This one actually comes from Apple's own website. Okay. So Apple today announced its largest ever spend commitment with plans to spend and invest more than $500 billion in the US over the next 4 years. This new pledge builds on Apple's long history of investing in American innovation and advanced high-skill manufacturing and will support a wide range of initiatives that focus on artificial intelligence, silicon engineering, and skills development for students and workers across the country. So again, this is their website in February. I think it was late February. So it was like, I think it was toward the end of the month, if I remember correctly. I don't have the specific day. Okay. Let's see what else. We got a couple more slides for Apple. So let's see what else they got. We got one more slide, actually. Apple and NVIDIA in talks to invest in OpenAI. So this comes from the New York Times in 2024. This is August of 2024. Apple and the chip maker NVIDIA are in talks to invest in OpenAI as part of a new deal that would value the San Francisco artificial intelligence startup at $100 billion, according to 3 people familiar with the discussions who spoke on the condition of anonymity. So Apple pointed out on their own site that they have a history of major investments. This announcement was after February 1st. However, the New York Times announced both Apple and NVIDIA were in talks back in August of 2024. So therefore, Apple, sorry, that one doesn't count. Has nothing to do with the tariffs. And also NVIDIA, I'm cheating here a little bit, but NVIDIA doesn't count either because we have record. I mean, this is the paper of record. You can trust the New York Times. Sorry, I had to choke down a laugh real quick. But seriously, it's on record that they were talking about this. So therefore, I'm not going to give it to the tariffs. And it was in August, right? Like you could argue and say, like, if it was in December, then perhaps they took it seriously. But again, he wasn't even sworn in, and you don't know what tariffs are actually going to be laid. So I'm ruling both of those as false. All right, what do we got for? Let's take a look here real quick. Where are we? I want to show, let's see, is it this one? Yeah, it's this one real quick. So again, let's take a look back here. So we did UAE, Saudi Arabia, Hyundai, Apple, NVIDIA. Now we're on SoftBank, OpenAI, and Oracle. So let's take a look at what we came up with for those. So here we are. We'll go back to that. Boom, bada bing. So SoftBank, Oracle, AI. I think I just got one slide on this. I believe this is the one I didn't find much of. So that's kind of promising. So let's take a look. SoftBank CEO, Miyagi-san, is all set to announce a mammoth $100 billion investment in the United States. The announcement will be made during a meeting with President-elect Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago residence in Palm Beach, Florida. This is from News Bites in December of 2024. Oh. Nope. Doesn't count. Like I said, you could try to argue that it was in December, but we have no idea what tariffs might be imposed. We have no idea whether or not they would be given, any particular company or country would be given exemptions, or like, hey, you can have this exemption, kind of like they did with Japan with the steel. And they're like, you got this exemption, but if you do more than this, then you're going to have this tariff, blah, 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 right? So like they had all this criteria. We don't have that information. He's not even sworn in. So sorry, SoftBank, Oracle, OpenAI. They all, well, I think I really just fell on the soft bank here. So I guess you could probably ding me for not specifically looking up Oracle, specifically looking up OpenAI. However, if you remember, we did see just a moment ago that Nvidia and Apple, they were going to be investing working with OpenAI. So it seems like OpenAI doesn't count either. And then I just didn't look up Oracle. But I'm willing to bet, given the proximity of all these, that Oracle is in the same boat. But if you want to ding me on that, if you want to be like, nah, DL, you got to look it up. Well, that's fine. I'll take the heat for that. All right, so let's move on to, this was a fun one because I actually got into an argument with somebody over this. This is TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor company, and it said, "Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute." It says back in 2020, thanks to President Trump's vision and support. But that doesn't sound like tariffs. Tariffs are a tax. I mean, I know some people argue like it's a tax on just the company, just the other. It's a tax. Even if you disagree on who it's on, it is a tax. Who says, man, I got taxed, and then go, thank you. Thank you for your vision and support for taxing me. Nobody says that, right? We embarked on our journey of establishing advanced chip manufacturing in the United States. This vision is now a reality, said TSMC Chairman and CEO, Dr. C.C. Wee. Okay. Well, I guess that concludes it. I think I got another slide, though. This came from Barron's. Trump said the import tariff rate for Taiwan will be set at 32%. Initially, that looked like bad news for American chip makers like NVIDIA, Advanced Micro Devices, and Qualcomm, which are customers of Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. Then the White House published a fact sheet after Trump's announcement that said semiconductors would not be subject to the reciprocal tariff. Oh, okay. Well, clearly, this one doesn't count because it says right here, yeah, you're exempt. See what I mean? See what I mean? This is in April. This was in Barron's in April this month. So this is why you can't just be like, oh, he threatened a tariff and therefore it worked. Well, no, because here in this particular case, he's like, all right, 32% suckers. And then they're like, whoa, whoa. And everybody's like, whoa, 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 this is not going to be good for us. They were all like, yo, you're talking to my man all wrong, right? It's the wrong tone. And then Trump was like, okay. I wish I could do impersonations. I would try to, maybe I'll practice on the side. I don't know. But then Trump was like, okay, you get an exemption. But everybody else, no exemption for you because you didn't complain loud enough. So that one's a failure. All right. And so this is why I do this research. This is why I split it up the way that I did. I wanted to look back and see what I could find and compare that to what exists today. And let me go on a little small tangent here because I want to point out something about this kind of research. Whenever you're dealing with a very hot topic, like let's say, and we're just gonna pick one randomly that has nothing to do with the show. We're gonna go on a small little tangent. We'll be right back. So let's say that let's just say that we live in a world where there's this crazy trans craze, and it's like all the kids are getting on it, mostly girls. We've lost all our gay kids. I'm just a hypothetical. Like this, of course, doesn't happen. But let's just say that it did happen. And then you were like, man, I really want to know, there's all this information that's coming out and you want to know what's true. One of the things that I've found that you can do is try to find a marker where everything blew up and then search for articles and publications and things before that. Because it's very popular that I've found for people to put out a lot of information, like a lot of information to come out after something's hot because everybody's talking about it. And you've got both sides, right? So if you've got in this hypothetical trans craze that clearly did not happen, like if you have that, people that are supportive, they're going to be rushing to get out all kind of information and prove their side is correct. And then people that are opposing, they're going to do the same thing. They'll be like, oh yeah, well look at this study over here and look at this. And here's this one kid, look at them. They're regretting blah, blah, blah. Again, hypotheticals. This clearly doesn't happen. And so it becomes very difficult to tease out which of that information is actually good information. So one of the things you can do, you can just say, all right, before this date, Let me go see what the conversation was like. Let me go see what was reported in the news. Let me see how it was being talked about, and in various blogs, or articles, opinions, whatever, those kind of things, right? And so you get a better picture. And I'm telling you, go do that. Pick a hot topic, whatever's hot, like when everybody's talking about it, right? And it's relatively new, you know, and then go back before that. And you're going to be surprised. You're going to be like, holy wow, the conversation is different. And that's because it's a hot topic and everybody's fighting to get their side to be the side. So I just wanted to go on that small little tangent really quickly. Thank you guys for in entertaining me going on a tangent while I'm already going on a long tangent on something that seems like bloody boring. But I'm trying to make it like kind of interesting. So we found TSMC, and let's see, where does that put us? So we've got the left hand side done. We're all done. We're like halfway through. That's awesome, right? So since we're halfway through, I'm going to take a bit of a break. Give me something to drink real quick. I'll be right back. It's only going to be like a minute. Don't worry about it, folks. We'll come back and we'll finish up the rest of the side, the other side, and then I'm going to talk about some other things real quick. So that's what we got for right now. Let me go to intermission here, and we shall return. Hey, Liberty fam, do me a favor. If you enjoy the show, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to my channel. And for the really serious folks out there, I want you to hit that bell so that you never miss an episode. By the way, if you want to support the show, head over to libertydad.locals.com and sign up. For $5, you can be part of this show. There, I'll engage supporters of the show. We'll discuss topics that you want me to talk about, response videos that you would like to see, or anything related to the show. And I'll even have a monthly subscribers only episode. By the way, I'm always looking for dads to join me for Dad Talk. That's my series where I invite everyday dads on to talk about what's important to them in the context of being a dad. No argument, no debate, and dads choose the topic. It's my way of raising dad voices. If you're a dad or you know a dad who has something to say, let's get connected. Episodes air live on Friday mornings or Friday evenings, whichever works best for dads. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, we're back. See, I told you it wouldn't be that long. You guys were all worried, wondering if I was going to be like 5 minutes or something, like go to the bathroom, do a bio break. No, just a few moments here, just so I can get me a little bit of coffee here, kind of wet my throat. All right, so where were we? So here we are. We have Johnson & Johnson, CMA, CGM Group, Eli Lilly, Merck, and Geo Aerospace. So let's get back right to it. Let's see what we come up with. All right, so that's Barron's. That's a report for TSMC. So let's move on to the next slide. So this is going to be Johnson & Johnson, right? Yes, Johnson & Johnson. Let me scroll back here. So here's what it said from Johnson & Johnson's website in March of 2025. Today, Johnson & Johnson Healthcare's leading most comprehensive innovation powerhouse announced manufacturing, research and development, and technology investments of more than $55 billion in the United States over the next 4 years. This was in March. Okay, so let's continue. All right, Johnson & Johnson has more manufacturing facilities in the U.S. than in any other country and is a leading investor in American innovation and R&D. This is in March 2025. And then I think I got one more slide, squeeze it out here. Johnson & Johnson today announced an investment of more than $2 billion to build a state-of-the-art biologics manufacturing facility in Wilson, North Carolina. This was also on Johnson & Johnson's website. However, it's from October of 2024. So here's where I am at with this one. They already acknowledge having most of their plants in the United States. They started investments last year. The $55 billion is additional. So I'm ranking it no. It's not related to tariffs. Because if most of your plants are already in the United States and we're imposing a tariff, let's say on China, like how is that going to motivate you to build and bring jobs to America when you already have jobs here in America? So I that's just how I see it, right? Like there's no evidence to support it, but there's evidence to the contrary. All right. Let's see. CMA, CGM Group, $20 billion. What do we got? CMA, CGM's significant investment strengthens its historical maritime transport and logistics partnership with the United States, supporting the economy, boosting American exports, and creating 10,000 new jobs. This strategic commitment will foster U.S. shipbuilding capabilities, expand port infrastructure, grow logistics networks, and develop air cargo services. This is in March of 2025. Okay. Well, I didn't find much for this one. I didn't find really any evidence prior to 2025 that might suggest that this investment, this $20 billion, was initiated or conversations were happening back in 2024 or maybe even earlier. So I'm going to have to give this one to him, right? Now, I personally, I don't believe it. I don't believe any of these are related to tariffs. Why? Because it's April and the tariffs started in February, right? That's when he started signing executive orders. We haven't had time to see the impact. We haven't had time for people to say, you know what? Based on the impact of this tariff, we're going to do this. But because I'm America's most objective libertarian, and because I'm going to try to do this in the most absolute good faith, I'm going to give them this one. So I believe that puts us at now three of them. So we've got CMA, CGM Group. Then we had, let's see, what was the other one? I thought we had three, or maybe we only had two. Hyundai, we had that one. And, I think that was it. Yeah, I think Hyundai, and then CGM, CMA, and yeah, that's it. So that's all that we have right now. We have two out of how many was that? Let's take a look at that real quick. Let's go look at my little picture and we'll see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So there's 12 companies or groups of companies that we're evaluating. And so far, out of the first 9, 2, we can say possibly are related to tariffs. 2. The other 7, no. And so we've got 3 more. So let's take a look at Eli Lilly, and we will see what we get out of that one. Well, let's see here. Where's boop, boop, boom. All right. So this is CMA, and then we're going to go to Eli Lilly here. This is Reuters, February of 2025. I did not mark down the actual date, but let's read what it says. Eli Lilly opens new tab plans to spend at least $27 billion to build 4 new manufacturing plants in the U.S. The drug maker said at a Washington press conference on Wednesday, as it grapples with the threat of drug import duties from the Trump administration. Now, this isn't the most validating, but it is something that says, hey, they're doing this, and they're doing it with regards to these tariffs, right? Like, and I didn't see any other information that would have suggested that they were thinking about doing this last year. And that's again my personal belief, but gonna be honest and give it to them. So now we're at 3. We're at 3 out of 12, and we've got 2 more. We've got Merck and we've got GE Aerospace. So let's take a look at Merck and let's see what they come up with. So this is my next slide. All right, U.S. drug maker Merck opens a new tab. Open. U.S. drug maker Merck opens new tab, said on Tuesday it is investing. I might have copied that wrong, but whatever. On Tuesday, it is investing $1 billion in a new Delaware plant to expand domestic production as it prepares to deal with President Donald Trump's tariffs. The new facility will produce biologic drugs and Keytruda, becoming Merck's first in-house U.S. site to make the blockbuster cancer treatment, the company said. All right. Again, like Eli Lilly, I did not find anything that contradicted this. So, therefore, they get it too. So now we're up to 4. We're at 4. We got 1 more. GE Aerospace. So let's see if GE Aerospace qualifies for their investments to be as a result of Trump's tariffs. GE Aerospace plans to invest nearly $1 billion in its U.S. factories and supply chain to strengthen manufacturing and increase the use of innovative new parts and materials needed for the future of flight. Okay, not a whole lot there for us. This new investment is nearly double last year's commitment and will increase engine safety, quality, and delivery, benefiting more than 24 communities across 16 states. The company also announced it will hire around 5,000 U.S. workers this year, including both manufacturing and engineering roles. This is from their website, March of 2025. So again, we're in that situation where I didn't find any contradicting information, and it's not really clear here. So we give it to them. So now we have, let's go back to our little graph there, our little infographic, and we'll take a look at them. So of all of these, we'll go down the line. UAE, false. Saudi Arabia, false. Hyundai, true. Apple, false. NVIDIA, false. SoftBank, Oracle, and OpenAI, false. TSMC, false. Johnson & Johnson, false. I almost said tariffs. CMA, CGM Group, true. Eli Lilly, Merck, and GE Aerospace, also all true. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see, 4. I think it's 5 altogether. Yes. So 5 out of the 12 ended up being. We can look and say reasonably they might have the tariffs might have had something to do with it. Now, in my personal opinion, again, I believe that no, that is not true. All right. So let's see. What do we got here? Sup there, Chuck Money? Chucking money? Yeah. Sup, man? How you doing? Hope you're not joining too late because you missed all the fun, but you could go back and listen to. So, all right, what else do I got? Well, it looks like I'm not going to get a whole 2 hours out of this. I may have to do something crazy in the morning to make up and get my time in. I don't know. We'll see. We'll figure something out. But for right now, let's just keep on moving right ahead. All right. So I want to play this video. This is from the White House press secretary. This, I think, came out today. So that was rather interesting. So let's see here. Let me see. I guess I didn't have that set up like I thought I did. So let's try this. Oh, hold on. Let's make this mo bigger. There we go. And then let's do this. I like this. Ta-da! I'm tiny now. All right, let's watch the White House press secretary and let's see what they ask.
So it was reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect, crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
So this is a great question. Now, I've watched some of these questions, like from time to time, I'll check out the White House press secretary and the, in the press and the questions they ask. And a lot of times they ask lame questions. And even when they ask good questions, a lot of times the answers that they get back are garbage. But hey, you tried, right? And that's what counts. And I want a press to ask these kind of questions. This is a very good question. And I want to point out, hopefully you know this. Hopefully I'm not telling you anything new. But if you go to the grocery store right now, a lot of the items, maybe all of the items, will tell you, they'll have like a little number on there that will tell you the price per unit. And sometimes you can use that to kind of determine whether or not something is, like you can try to come up with the budget, and you could do any number of ways, right? You could be like, oh, I'm only going to spend $2 per meal, right? And then you could use that to kind of help and identify, am I spending this much money per meal? So I'm just saying, like, in this time where people are like, hey, groceries are expensive, Trump is doing his thing. Who knows how it's going to turn out exactly? He's claiming all these, praise and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you need a little tip, hopefully that will help you. But anyway, let's get back to this. Let's listen to what the White House press secretary had to say.
I will take this since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act.
Hostile act? Do we just use words however the F we please now? Is that what it is? It's hostile. Like, they're putting a number on, like, hey, this is how much this thing cost. That's it. They're going to put a number there. This is the tax that's being rolled down to you, because how do tariffs work? You say, all right, we're imposing a tariff on this particular product when you ship it out, when you try to ship it over here. And a lot of times those products are going to somebody else who's going to be the one to maybe use that. Maybe it's a raw good and they're going to use it like steel. Maybe it's the end product, but they're going to sell it in their store, right? So they mark it up a little bit. So what happens is China or whomever, they say, well, this product, we were selling it to you at $1 per unit, but now the Trump administration has imposed a tax. Tariff is a nice word, I guess, the euphemism for it. But Trump has imposed he's imposed a tax, a tariff. And so now we're going to pass that cost on to you, Mr. Middleman. And then the middleman's like, well, I don't want to pay that cost because that's going to lower my revenue. That's going to lower the amount of profit that I'm trying to make. So therefore, they're going to raise their prices. And then voila, the person that goes on Amazon and they're like, man, I could use a new webcam for my podcast. I could use a second one. And so then they look on there and they're like, holy wow. Just yesterday it was $170. And now we're just going to make up a number. It's $190. And then Amazon's going to be like, this extra $20, maybe not quite $20, but this extra $20, that's your tariff. Hope you're happy. You voted for it. That's all they're doing. Now, is it hostile? No. Are they saying that? Well, yeah. I mean, well, yes, you heard them say that. But why are they saying that? Because they have to, because they know that it is a tax. And Amazon is doing the right thing. To be honest with you, I wish we would have more of that everywhere. You know, it'd be great if you went into a doctor's office. I'm gonna move this screen here real quick so it doesn't look weird while you're staring at like a video that's not playing. I wish we could go to a doctor's office and see a list of all the prices. You go in there and you're like, all right, I would like to have this wart on my hand frozen off. And they could be like, that's gonna be $300. And you'd be like, well, maybe not. Maybe I'll just cut it off with a pair of scissors and see what happens, right? And then you could go down the line, you could look and you could see what all the treatments are. And then you could even maybe compare doctors. You could go in there and you could be like, all right, this doctor over here, he's charging this much money for these things. And this doctor over here is charging this much money for these things. By the way, you may not know this, or hopefully you do, but there are doctors that do this. Some of them are specialists, and some of them, so it's not widespread, but it does happen. I am the beneficiary of one. So in 2016 or 15, I think it was 2015, I had a middle fossa craniotomy. Like somebody just cut into the side of my head. And I had an inner ear problem, and I had to have my head cut into, and they went in there and they did some cool stuff or whatever. But the doctor I went to, he's a world-renowned specialist for a particular issue that I was having. It's a rare condition. And so I sought out some local doctors. I didn't like the answers I was getting because by the time I got to that doctor, I had already done my research. And you know how we're having this conversation, this debate all over the internet about experts? Well, I basically became the podcast bro before I had a podcast that went into the doctor's office and I was like, all right, I've done my research on this. I think I was like, you need to test me for this. And they were like, for real, bro? That's a rare condition. You think you just diagnosed yourself with that? Like, yes, I did. And so then, after that, we got tested. I got tested. They confirmed, like, yep, you have it. You have it actually on both ears. So then I go to a doctor that deals with this. And by that time, I'd already reached out to a community online and learned a whole lot about this. What do they call it? It's not a disease. This condition. Let's go with that. He was like, "Well, I'm going to do this treatment." I was like, "I don't know if that's the right treatment for me," but I really couldn't articulate it very well. So then I got my second opinion, and I went out to this doctor out in Louisiana. His name is Dr. Giannoli, and I reached out to him and I was like, hey, you come recommended. From what I can tell, it looks like people from all over the world literally fly to come see you for this issue. So that kind of tells me the market is telling me where I need to go to get the best treatment. Man, let me tell you something. I went there and I think I had like a 2-hour appointment with him. Like it's like an hour, 2 hours or something like it's like I've never had an appointment that long. Usually that's how long I wait just to see the doctor for 5 minutes. So I had this like 1 hour or 2 hour. I think they vary depending on the appointment because I had to go to a couple of them. And uh, one of the things that they did was they were like, before I even left Jacksonville, they emailed me and they were like, "Here you go." Sent me an email and they said, "Here is what he would plan to do. Here are the prices for everything that he's going to do. Some of the prices we don't have an exact amount because he has to rent. He has to rent the operating room from the nearby hospital because he doesn't have his own operating room. But as far as all the procedures that he's going to perform, all the tests that he's going to do, here is that information." Then they went a step further. They were like, "Here are the codes that you need to give to your insurance company when you call them up so that they will reimburse you because he didn't take insurance." Then they did something else. They were like, when it was all like when I was ready to go to the insurance company and get my money back, I wish I had a stack of papers here, but they basically said, "Here's a stack of papers. Everything's been filled out and prepared. You literally just need to send this to your insurance company and you are good to go." So they literally held my hand as I walked through this whole process. And how that's related is kind of loosely related because I'm talking about the prices. That was the most astounding thing to me because I had never heard of that before. I was like, I hadn't even seen him yet, and I already knew how much it was going to cost, roughly, like mostly, right? I mean, there was still some costs that we weren't sure because maybe he would need an additional test or something like that. But the basics, the foundation of it, which was most of the cost, I knew before I ever stepped foot into his door. So I totally agree with Amazon. I think we need more information. And I harp on that all the time. If the government is to do anything, they should just be, we're producing information and giving it to the public and let you guys deal with it. You figure out what you do with this. That would be, if I had my way, if I could wave a magic wand, I'm going to use one of my son's crayons here. Crayon here. This is my magic wand. And I wave my wand and I say, abracadabra, poof, or something. I don't know. I'm not a magician, okay? Podcaster. I'm not a magician. So anyway, so I wave my wand. I say some magic words. Every place in the country that has prices would have the most amount of information, the maximum amount of information on it. I wouldn't do it by government. I would do it by magic, which is okay. It's not a violation of anything in any libertarian principles if you use magic. So it's cool. So that's what I would do. I totally support this idea of, them putting the information out there and saying, "Hey, look, this is how much you're going to pay in tariffs." And people could decide. Because here's what I do. I don't know how you do this. Here's what I do. I go onto Amazon, grab my phone, I'm going to pretend. So I go on Amazon and I'm looking for something. Let's say I'm looking for a new camera, right? And so I'm like, camera. This one's $100. This one's $150. I basically look and say, what am I willing to pay for the camera that I want? Maybe I search out the details, whatever. And then I say, okay, this is the criteria of what I'm looking for. Maybe I want a particular brand, but then I go in and figure out how much am I willing to pay. So I might look at the price and I might say, it's $100 or it's $150. And I might say, that's the price I'm willing to pay at the end of the day. That's really like, I'm not really going to make my decision. I'm not going to make virtually any decisions so much on the tariff. I'm going to make it at the bottom line. It's still good information to have because then I can point my finger at Republicans or Trump or whomever and say, "Hey, you caused this," right? Maybe we can even get some cool bumper stickers. Remember the stickers from Biden? It was like, I did that, and people were putting them all over like gas pumps and everything. We should totally print out, like, I'm not telling you to go deface somebody's property. So maybe you'd use magnets. It's more expensive, but at least you're not damaging property. It's probably wrong anyway. But get you some magnets of Trump, like pointing, it says, "I did that." And then when, brick and mortar places start putting their prices and saying, here's the tariff that you're paying, you could just like put a little Trump, "I did that," right next to him. Okay, I'm done on my tangent. Let me go back to this video. You get the point. So here we are. All right, let's go. Push this
by
button.
Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise because, as Reuters recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda arm. So this is.
So can I zoom? I think I could zoom in on that. I'm going to zoom in on that because I want to see. I just want to see something. Let's have a little fun here. So she just said a propaganda arm. Is she saying that he's a Chinese propagandist? Because that's his arm. I mean, look, I know the running joke in the libertarian community is that we're all autistic. I'm not. But she did say arm. And she held up a picture, literally, of Jeff Bezos with his arm up. He's got his arm up. So, like, is he the propagandist? Is that what the White House is literally calling people propagandist and CCP whatever who are American citizens? For real? Because I think that's inappropriate. Just, I mean, that's just me. Maybe you have a different view. Anyway,
it's another reason why Americans should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Is Jeff Bezos still a Trump supporter?
Look, I will not speak to the president's.
Okay. So now they're like, but wasn't he a Trump supporter? Is he still a Trump? Because you literally just called him, a propagandist. You're like, check out this propagandist arm. It's Jeff Bezos' arm. He's a propagandist. And then he's like, well, thought he was friends with Trump. Whoa. I don't want to get into all that. Okay. Why not? You open the door. Answer it. Don't be scared. Answer the question. Because you're all full of it. That's why you don't want to answer it.
Relationships with Jeff Bezos, but I will tell you that this is certainly a hostile and political action by Amazon. And Secretary, if you have anything.
I like how she's trying to play it off. She's like, look, I'm not going to get into the relationship with Jeff Bezos, but Amazon, as if they're like two different entities. As if like Jeff Bezos is, he's the CEO, but he's not really the guy that runs the show. Like, it's like somebody else. He's just there. And she's like, he's the propagandist, but it's really Amazon. Like, she's tripping over herself just to kind of cover for the fact that a tariff is a tax. Now, we can argue about who pays the tax, but at the end of the day, it's still a tax. And they just don't want to fess up.
Yeah, I would also add that the bringing down the terrible Biden inflation has been a priority for the first 100 days of the Trump administration. And President Trump has done a great job of leading that since January 20th. Interest rates, mortgage rates are down. Gasoline and energy prices are down. We're expecting the further decreases. And as Caroline said, the big tax on consumers that goes unnoticed is deregulation. Or
what? Let's rewind that real quick. Did he just?
There decreases. And as Caroline said, the big tax on consumers that goes unnoticed is deregulation or regulation. And we are deregulating and bringing that down.
So, okay. So he said it's deregulation. It's regulation. We're deregulating. Okay. I'll give it to him. Slip of the tongue. I thought I missed it the first go. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Did he really say deregulation? He just made it. Sounds like he made a slip of the tongue. We'll let it slide.
From a household income point of view, we would expect real purchasing increases. We've seen them over the first 100 days, and we would expect that to accelerate. We are doing peace deals, trade deals, tax deals, and deregulating. And the deregulation is a longer lead time, but I think by the third and fourth quarters, that's really going to kick in.
All right. So third and fourth quarter, it's going to kick in. We should come back to that. I'm going to put it on my calendar or somewhere. Did I say calendar? I hope that Liberty lady is not watching because she'll be like, whoa, did you just say calendar? You're going to use the calendar? She's going to jump for joy. But I'm going to try to figure out how I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to store this clip somehow. I'm going to figure it out. We're going to come back and we're going to see if things have improved in the third and fourth quarter. We will see. He said it's a longer lead time. Let's hold him accountable, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing. This is why I do the show, so that we can look and we can say, did you deliver on your promises, right? And of the promises that you delivered on, did they turn out like you said they would? Or were you wrong? Or did you have to lie about it like the press secretary there, Caroline, did, where she's like, oh yeah, I want to comment on their relationship. I just want to talk about Amazon and then point a picture at Jeff Bezos. But I don't want to do anything that might disrupt their relationship. Okay. I see the game you're playing. But I'm playing a game too. A game of holding your ass accountable. That's what I'm playing. So again, let's take a look at it one last time. All of these, I believe we found five that you could say are related to tariffs. I think like two of them were three of them were very clear. No, two were clear. One was clear that it was not, absolutely was not. Very clear, the semiconductor one, where they said, hey, you're exempt. We're putting a 32% tariff on Taiwan. No, not you guys. You're cool. We're good. Right. So that's where we are. That's my show for today, folks. I'll take a look in the comments, see if there's anything else. Looks like I didn't make the 2 hours. Boo. Is it this one? Which one is it? Oh, I gotta be louder than that. There it goes. Did you hear that? All right. But I'll figure something out. I still got until noon tomorrow to make it happen. I am going to make this happen. I'm going to get my 30 hours in. Come hell or high water, or I'll just bitch about it. We'll see. 4 people watching, but only 2 likes. You guys must love tariffs. She was watching. I hope she didn't hear the comment about the calendar. Well, that's okay. When I started, I promise I'll close in just a second. When I first got the idea, like, you know what, I'm going to walk through each one of those. In my head, it seemed a lot more interesting at the time. And then as I started going through and doing the research, I was like, this is kind of boring. And I was like, I don't know. I got to learn to be funny or something, like interject some jokes and stuff like that. So that, I could break up the monotony of some of these things. But it's what we are. It's what I have, and I'm growing. I'll get better at it. You keep watching the show, tuning in. After tomorrow, though, I promise you I'm going to do my best to keep up with 30 hours over 30 days and not try to squeeze it all in on the last 15 days. Because good Lord, this was exhausting. It was a lot of friggin' work. But I think it's going to be worth it. I will enjoy getting into that Rumble Creator Program as soon as I can. All right. Nice tease to make me go back and listen. Yes, you should. Oops, I clicked on your actual link. So, yes, you should go back and listen. See what I said. Who knows what I said about you? Anyway, for now, folks, I'm going to head on out. Thank you, everybody, for joining, for listening to me go on. And now whenever people say, oh, his tariffs did all this, you can tell them, nah, this crazy ass dude, he did a show for an hour and a half, breaking it down on every single one of them. So now, you don't have to try to guess. You don't have to try to whatever, for a fact. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. You can also become part of the community by heading over to libertydad.locals.com. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.